When will the Bitcoin bull market end? How long will it last? We'll be talking about two predominant perspectives. One of those is the typical halving cycles, but the other is going to be the accelerated cycle. And we'll be talking about both of these perspectives in a lot of detail. So subscribe to the channel for more videos like this in the future. Like this video if you enjoy content like this going forward. And let's dive right into it. So if we look at the typical halving cycles, we'll be talking about what do we tend to see in terms of bull market peaks in these typical halving cycles. So 518 days after the halving is where we saw a bull market peak in that 2016-17 cycle. But in the 2020-2021 cycle, this was a slightly longer bull market peak, which occurred 1 month later compared to what we saw in the previous cycle, and that was 546 days after the halving. So if we were to just see history repeat with a 518 day after the halving bull market peak, or even 546 day period after the halving bull market peak, that would get us to mid-September or mid-October 2025. So that's that perspective in a nutshell. And what's interesting about this halving cycle in general is that this is in of itself slightly an accelerated cycle, but we'll be talking about that in a lot more detail, because let's actually move on to the main accelerated cycle thesis. Because historically, it has taken Bitcoin 214 days after the halving to break to new all-time highs. You see that in the 2020 cycle, 214 days after the halving, we broke to new all-time highs. In the 2016 cycle, we broke to new all-time highs 214 days after the halving as well. So if history were to repeat, and we know that it hasn't and it didn't, then Bitcoin were to reach that new all-time high in this cycle 214 days after the halving. But what happened instead is that Bitcoin actually reached a new all-time high 1 month prior to the halving in this cycle. So if that's the case, I mean, it is the case indeed, but that just means that we are 260 days ahead of schedule. At least at the moment of Bitcoin breaking to new all-time highs in this cycle, it was 260 days ahead of schedule. But the thing about that is that we've been consolidating in this structure around the halving event, and it's been going on for a fair amount of time, of approximately over 30 days. So if we think about this acceleration in March being 260 days, because we've seen consolidation for the past month or even more, that acceleration has decreased from 260 days to approximately 230 days. And for as long as this reaccumulation continues to occur, then we'll see continued deceleration, and that's going to be very good for the cycle. We're going to see reverting to historical norms. So this deceleration is good for the cycle in terms of resynchronizing this current cycle with the typical halving cycle that we tend to see. However, this consolidation would need to go on for quite a while. So if we had 260 days in March, that rate of acceleration with this 30-day consolidation period, we're now seeing a rate of acceleration by 230 days. We need to see a few more months of sideways price action for that acceleration to really return to zero. And even then, if we look at this acceleration being 230 days, well, in the previous halving cycles, we've seen acceleration by 1 month, by 30 days. So there is a possibility that we won't decelerate completely. We won't consolidate here forever. And as a result, there's still going to be some slight leftover acceleration, and that's going to be fine in line with the halving cycle itself. The halving cycle itself allows for some minimal acceleration. So the accelerated cycle theory suggests that maybe the halving period, or at least the halving, shouldn't be the reference point for price. Instead, it should be the old all-time highs. And historically, when Bitcoin has broken beyond old all-time highs, it has rallied for a certain amount of time. So this was the first old all-time high it broke beyond. It took 266 days for Bitcoin to top out. In this cycle, when it broke beyond old all-time highs, it took 280 days. And in this cycle, when we broke beyond old all-time highs, it took 315 days. So we're already seeing this extension, lengthening in the amount of days that it takes for Bitcoin to break beyond old all-time highs and bull market peak. But even if we were just to look at this window of 266 days to 315 days, just based on these three data points, then that essentially would mean that we could peak at the end of November of 2024 or late December, early January, December 2024, early January 2025. So if we were to see the same rate of acceleration that we saw a month ago, then this would be probably the predominant perspective. But because we're seeing this consolidation continue here, and just notice how the green circle showcases that consolidation is very much normal price behavior at around old all-time high regions, and this reaccumulation and consolidation here tends to precede breakout rallies to new all-time highs. That's what awaits Bitcoin in this cycle, but this consolidation is going to continue for a little while longer, and the longer it continues, the more we'll see a lengthening in the amount of time that it takes for Bitcoin to break beyond old all-time highs and rally to a new bull market peak. So we could see lengthening here in terms of this historical tendency, which ties in with the fact that if we see extended consolidation here, that's going to resynchronize the cycle more with the traditional halving cycle. And it also ties in with a potential lengthening here in terms of maybe an additional month on top here, which gets us deeper into the new year of 2020, into maybe February, March. It really depends how long we consolidate here. But the accelerated cycle is saying to us that late 2024, early 2025 is when that bull market peak could occur. The halving cycle is suggesting to us that maybe we're going to see a mid-September, mid-October 2025 bull market peak. But it is a dynamic situation, a very dynamic situation, because of this reaccumulation range that we're seeing around a halving event. And we tend to see this reaccumulation period take place around a halving in every cycle, whether it's 2020, even 2016 as well. We saw a reaccumulation period. So it really does depend on how long this current reaccumulation period is going to be, because that's going to cut into the acceleration that we're seeing currently in the cycle. And the longer this consolidation continues, the more acceleration, or at least deceleration, we're going to see in this cycle. So in a nutshell, at the moment, we are accelerating in this cycle by 230 days, but that's already an improvement on the 260 days that we saw in the month prior. In March, we were seeing 260 days, and now we're getting close to May, which means that 230 days is now the current acceleration, and this can still continue for a little while longer. If we look at this reaccumulation period, that lasted for a few months. So if we add an additional few months to this current reaccumulation period, that's going to further cut in to the current acceleration in this cycle, which means that we're going to continue to resynchronize more and more with traditional halving cycles. Really depends on how long we continue to consolidate here, but this is a real benefit for this current cycle, because that means that we're going to be pushing the bull market peak later into the future, meaning that the bull market will continue to last for much longer, which is going to inevitably play into a much healthier parabolic uptrend once we break out from this reaccumulation range in the future. That's months down the line probably, but this parabolic phase still lays ahead, and the longer this reaccumulation takes place, the greater and more impressive this parabolic phase is going to be in the future. Thank you so much for watching. Check out the top right hand corner video for more. Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this in the future. Like this video if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content like this going forward. I'm Rekt Capital, and I'll speak to you in the next one. Speak to you soon.